Max Payne 3 is one of those sequels that completely tried to reinvent what the franchise was about, developed by Rockstar Games and set in a completely new setting, telling the story of a man so destroyed by guilt and addiction, you can't help but say, damn, that's a lot of pain. Max Payne 3 is a game that split the fanbase apart due to its new direction, seemingly having nothing in common with the prior games, and yet I still see people talking about it so consistently. But why? Let's talk about it.
Excuse me. Max Payne?
Max Payne 3 is just a load of dumb action fun. Leaping out of cover, blasting heads with a bunch of weapons while Max drops lines about how drunk and fucked up he is. That's Max Payne 3.
Hey Max, what is it with you and interior design? Huh? You really know how to give a place a great lived-in feel, huh? This is beautiful.
Fuck off with the fucking wisecracks. Really, I'm not in the mood.
But I can't help but feel there's more to it. Going from blasting heads with shotguns and crazy action set pieces to a slow, disorienting cutscene watching this badass killer collapse onto his bed drunk, and an absolute mess just intrigues me. It simply shouldn't work, but it does. Max Payne 3 carefully blends gameplay and story together, avoiding any kind of ludonarrative dissonance, resulting in a immersive, depressing, melancholic rabbit hole of grief and regret. And yet, this game is just so much fun. Max Payne 3 is a third-person cover shooter sharing similarities to its predecessors while also trying to live up to the expectations of 2012, where everything had to be more realistic and gritty. Guns sound impactful, gore effects are both disturbing and beautiful, the physics are still some of the best in the genre, only topped by Rockstar themselves, and the action set pieces are about as insane as you can get with the story being told in Max Payne 3. The gameplay loop is as basic as it gets. You watch a cutscene, get dropped into a scenario, take cover and shoot the bad guys. It's basic, but it's simple, and that is the type of game I can replay over and over again. Max Payne 3 is like 8 hours long depending on how many cutscenes you skip, and I have over 70 hours in Max Payne 3 now, so yeah, that kind of tells you how many times I've replayed this game on PC alone. Level design is great for this kind of game. Yes, it's repetitive, but every encounter somehow feels fresh. Every time you replay it, something new can happen. An enemy flanks you, you get charged by 3 or 4 guys, or you've run out of bullet time, so now you need to find cover and hopefully get a quick shot off before you get sniped by that fucking sniper that's too scared to face a drunk, murdering, depressed person. Enemy variety is really bad though. You get your usual basic enemies, and then you get your basic enemies, but now they have body armor. Rockstar is back at it again with their incredible variety of enemies, resulting in 2. But this time around you have constant narration from Max. That's where you get your variety from, because Max seems to have a line for every single gringo you shoot. So that's a positive, that's some variety, you get a line every time, it's pretty cool. The gunplay though is the best gunplay Rockstar have ever developed. It's so much better than GTA and Red Dead, and I can't really explain why. It's not just the addition of bullet time, it's the physics that are completely unpredictable, it's the sound design of every bullet shot, the screams of enemies terrified of seeing this dude who does not belong there wipe out their childhood friends. It's just something that I wish Rockstar would just lean back into with their other IPs like GTA and Red Dead. Don't get me wrong, Red Dead has some really great physics, there's a lot of good AI moments, but Max Payne just seems to hit different. It's hard to put into words why, but I do think the main aspect is the physics of Max Payne 3. The repetitive nature of the missions feels less repetitive because of those things I mentioned. There's not really a third-person shooter out there like Max Payne 3 because of the attention to detail when it comes to those aspects. Unfortunately, there is no real progression in gameplay, but honestly, that was a breath of fresh air. It was so nice playing a game that doesn't force in shit RPG additions that do nothing for the gameplay loop. Max Payne 3 isn't ashamed to be a basic linear third-person shooter, and I can't help but respect it. It's a repetitive action fest, and I loved every second of it, no matter how many times I replay this game. Max Payne 3 lacks gameplay progression and customization, but relies wholly on your ability to accept Max Payne 3 for what it is, and accept the flaws that come with these types of games. What it doesn't lack is an addictive mission structure with top tier gunplay mechanics that, while repetitive, leaves you with something new to mess around with and delivers on one of the best third person shooter experiences you'll have in a long time. But what will really decide whether you enjoy this experience is the story.
And I realized they were correct. I wouldn't know right from wrong if one of them was helping the poor and the other was banging my sister.
The biggest criticism I see of Max Payne 3 is the presentation, so let's get that out the way. I agree, the presentation of the story has a strong direction, but overall the way cutscenes are edited is straight up tough to get used to. You get these crazy amount of edits turning more into comic panels and sometimes nauseating changes to lighting, and while yes, Max Payne 3 has a style, it's just too much most of the time. The occasional change would have been perfect, like, I don't know, like once every 5 minutes, but it happens almost every 5 seconds, and it becomes distracting and straight up irritating. I get it's supposed to show Max's drunken state, but I think him collapsing on a bed while drinking a glass of whiskey for the 8th time in a row kinda gives it away with the along with the narration of how fucked up Max is. That's the entire game, it's Max fucked up, the story. That being said, the presentation, other than that, is pretty much perfect. Visuals are still great looking, the graphics and art style still live up to today's standards most of the time, and it perfectly blends realism with these over-saturated colours with the editing that provides a game that's both fun to play while nice to look at, which is good. The other criticism is the writing. Some people say it's far too predictable and the lines are so overly edgy or vulgar, which was not the case for the original 2 games. But I disagree, not with the criticisms necessarily, they are fair criticisms, but the writing nails the point. The writing is supposed to be predictable, that's the whole point. Max is an ex-cop, desperate for the moment he gets a bullet to the head, but it's always those around him that takes the bullet. That's been the whole point of these games. He is so drunk and at times delusional to the point that something that a detective could spot in an instant is something he can no longer see coming because of his spiral and desperation. That's the perspective we follow the story from, and sure, you could say it's just bad writing, but perspective is important, and in the case of Max Payne 3, I'd say the predictability is the reason the story works. Sure, it relies too much on contrivance and at times is genuinely quite dumb, but I personally love it. And well, I don't write stories, at least not yet, so I'm not exactly qualified to complain about writing, but I don't care. I like the story here as a consumer. My favourite moment is always the halfway point when Max shaves his head for lots of different reasons. 1, he shaved his head, and 2, you know, it's a new Max, you know? Max Payne is dead. Long live Max Payne. The soundtrack from Health really pulls it all together. It's one of the best soundtracks I've had the pleasure of hearing while mowing down enemies. It's both epic and somber, and like I said, it pulls everything together. Max Payne 3 would not be the same without it. Voice acting is phenomenal, especially from James McCaffrey, who plays Max Payne. And guys, I'm not insane, but is it me, or would James McCaffrey make an amazing Wolverine? Am I the only one that can hear this? Because I looked it up online, no one's talking about James potentially being Wolverine. Everyone kills in the voice acting department for me, but the writing for a lot of the characters are so obnoxious and stereotypical it becomes a joke. Guys like Marcelo are so over the top, so dumb, so annoying, he quickly becomes an archetype and not a character, to the point I just did not care about him at all, and that could be said for a lot of the characters here. But most don't get a lot of screen time, so it's not exactly an issue. In fact, the entire plot, Max protecting this family of rich assholes, is there just for an excuse to follow Max on his own personal journey of regret and potential redemption, not for everyone else, but for him to finally move on, to accept what happened and to, you know, just live the rest of his life in peace. That's all I can really say without getting into spoilers. Max Payne's 3 story, while contrived and overly edited, is a wonderful dive into the character of Max, providing an entertaining while simple story that allows you to have heaps of fun with the gameplay and eventually finishing Max's story with a bang. And as much as I would love to see a Max Payne 4, I think Max's story is done, and to continue it again would be detrimental to the IP, and a potential reboot in a decade's time could be the best option. Thank you for watching.